English translation 321st contact, Tuesday, 5th March 2002, 8:15 hours.
Welcome, dear friend. You are back earlier than Florina told me.
I was able to finish my work earlier and get everything done. I am glad to be here again and also to see you healthy. Greetings. I see that you now have a computer which will certainly help you overcome many of the hassle of using an electric typewriter. With your permission, I will deal with this device later. However, it will be very unfamiliar to me, because I am completely unfamiliar with such earthly technical achievements and therefore do not know anything about them. Most likely, I will do more mischief to you on the device than just get something rational done.
Of course you can use the computer. If you change things around, that is not too bad. Because if I cannot clear it up myself, Piero is our expert, and he can certainly fix everything and clear the ship.
My thanks be he assured. I am sure I will cause mischief, because I have never dealt with such a device before, because this kind of technology does not fall into my field of knowledge. From a technical and electronic point of view, I am only versed in our own high achievements, and in the resulting and new higher research and construction.
Sure, that is understandable. So do not force yourself then.
First, I want to explain the following. We have already processed some of the data from your General Assembly last Saturday, and it was discovered by our specialists who deal with your bookkeeping that a serious error was made in the annual accounts of Christian. Namely, that an old debt of 10,000 francs from the 1980s was recorded as an entry for the year 2001. This is completely incorrect and must be corrected in such form that there is no receipt of the amount, only an outgoing payment. In fact, there was no receipt of the amount of money in 2001, but only an outgoing payment of the amount in question, so that it must be recorded solely in this form, with the note, payment of the legacy. Only in this form is everything correct, explained by our experts.
When you telepathically transmitted this to me yesterday at 11:17 HRs, I wanted to contact Christian by telephone in the afternoon. But unfortunately he was not at home, so he called me back in the evening and I could give him your message.
I know that.
Then you also know that he was busy as a result of a death that occurred at the home he manages.
Yes. A resident patient had died suddenly and unexpectedly last Sunday.
You probably do not miss anything at all that happens in connection with our members. It is simply phenomenal and sometimes hard to believe.
You know that our registrations in this regard are comprehensive.
Of course I know that. It was just an observation.
That is what I understood. Now I would like to send you very kind greetings from my daughters Simyase and Plaja. Also ask it and her friends send you greetings, as well as everyone else you know personally. Especially I should send you greetings from Manara, Rala, and Talida, and of course also from Quetzal, who asked me to send you special greetings and best wishes.
Thank you. I am touched and honored.
Also, from our entire spiritual leadership, I am to bring you greetings, as well as the greatest thanks for all the many and valuable work you do for us. Also unknown to you, I am to greet you from many of our folks. Also, Andron and Daniel are not behind in this respect, who you also know. All those mentioned above, along with all the others you know, will visit you again in the course of this year, if they have the opportunity to do so, which will certainly be when they are on holiday.
Their visit will make me happy.
To come back to your meeting of last Saturday, as I have noticed, misunderstandings often arise among the group members regarding our wording when we dictate any statements or advice, etc., that you should give or read to the group members. We have noted this repeatedly, and from our side, these misunderstandings are most unfortunate. In fact, all the members of the core group should, up to the present time, have formed their understanding of our way of presentation to such an extent that they understand our somewhat higher and logical language and expression, and thus should not continue to think in their own inadequate forms, but should make an effort to acquire our whys of thinking and expression in an appropriate manner. For it is only by failing to do so that false perceptions and a false understanding arises, that therefore misunderstandings arise, out of which false conclusions, assumptions, interpretations, findings, and views, etc. arise. And all group members should also be rational enough at this time to ask questions exhaustively, if they do not understand something or if something is simply unclear. This prevents misunderstandings and ambiguities on the one hand, but on the other hand, it also prevents damage and much annoyance, as well as nagging, hypocrisy, unnecessary discussions, and senselessly wasted time.
You are talking about something that has been on my stomach for a long time and might as well save me some. The same goes for most group members. For my part, I'm always happy to explain everything in detail, both in terms of the spiritual teaching and in terms of all the questions that are brought to me. Only questions which I am not allowed to answer will of course remain unanswered, or will only be dealt with when the time is ripe, which is usually due to the lack of the necessary understanding of the questioner. If I am not able to answer a question, I point out that I am simply unknowledgeable in order to be able to answer it.
I know your fairness in this regard. I just think it is a pity that your exact statements are interpreted as authoritarian by various group members, as well as your exact instructions for the completion of some things and work or regarding admonitions about wrong behavior, which should be corrected and thus changed to satisfy that which is better and progressive and thus evolutive. This also refers to the instructions you have to give with regard to order, behavior towards fellow human beings, authorities, and the state, as well as living together in interpersonal relationships, etc. But such accusations of authority are without exception only made against you in a hidden wise by people whose self-esteem is disturbed and who suffer from selfishness, egotism, and arrogance, as is unfortunately the case with group members. So they are human beings, like many others who do not come to you, who are in special need of guidance, so that they can find the right way of life, take it and go. This also refers to partiality, which is unjustly accused of you in a hidden wise by those who talk behind your back. But the authoritarian and partisan insults lack any basis in every respect, because our very precise clarifications and knowledge of your person, your characteristics, emotions, and behavior, etc., completely exclude such machinations, as Quetzal explained to you in the 80s. And, of course, we take the liberty of constantly checking this, even if it is not necessary. Because you have been so closely connected with your task since time immemorial that you would not be in the least bit guilty of anything of the kind that you are accused of in this form or otherwise. We do not monitor this in order to control you, but to have clarity at all times about how you react to everything. And this is because we allow ourselves to evaluate your reactions and behavior and use them instructively for ourselves. And in this respect, many facts come to light which are very useful to us because they have been lost to us over many thousands of years, so we have to learn them again. And we can do this in good form by registering and evaluating all your behavior and your form of thinking and forming of emotions, etc., the resulting teachings, which you then also work out for us in writing in accordance with our questions, are extremely well received by all of us, not only by those of us who are in contact with you, but especially by our spiritual leadership, as you know, but ultimately also by our people, who are very grateful and know very well that you work out everything for us in laborious efforts, know no rest for it, and never demand anything in return.
You embarrass me with your words, my friend, while the other one causes me inner pain, just in relation to the names you mentioned. But it is really not necessary to emphasize everything in relation to myself and my work. It goes without saying that I do the work, for in the end it is my task to which I said yes, and therefore I have to do it.
This is true with regard to the Earth and Earth humans, but not with regard to us, our spiritual leadership, and our peoples. You have voluntarily and additionally taken on this great extra work, and this brings you a great deal more burden. And when I think of all the work you do for the Earth humans, just with your writings and books, with the spiritual teaching as well as with letters, telefaxes, telephone conversations, interlocutions, explanations, visitors' conversations, with our contact conversations, with your shopping tours, the running of the center and the management of the groups and various group correspondence, and with all kinds of other different things, then something begins to turn in my head and I have to ask myself how you manage everything. And when I still think about the attacks and slander you are constantly exposed to, and from time to time any attacks on your life, and that you simply accept all this without resistance and without hatred and without thoughts of revenge, but for all those who still have good thoughts and feelings for those who are wicked to you and to whom you feel real love in a spiritually fine-feeling wise, and who you would reach out a helping hand and support them if they needed your help, then I can only say that I myself am not as big as you in this respect, and that I still have a lot to learn from you. If these things were to come to me, then I would fight back. Even if I, like all of our peoples of the Pleiaren, am very peaceful and know no hatred and no vengeance and otherwise no retaliation, I would defend myself, like all other of our peoples, against attacks and slander against honor and life, etc.
It is certainly as you say, I will not object to that. But I would like to say that it is not always easy for me either to remain calm and not to fight back. Sometimes, however, there is nothing else to do but fight back, whatever that may be. So I do not let myself be killed as easily as it may seem, because I do have the means to defend myself if necessary. But the absolute rule is that I let rationality prevail. I control my thoughts and feelings, and I do not let myself be carried away by emotions. Besides, I have pretty good nerves of steel that do not let me down so easily. It would be even nicer if things were different, because then I would not be able to fulfill my mission. I am also just a normal human being, even if I am somewhat more versed in spiritual teachings than other human beings on the earth, which certainly does not make me megalomaniacal. But I know very well what responsibility I have to bear, and what important mission I have to fulfill. And I have to direct my thoughts and feelings as well as my actions precisely in accordance with this. Consequently, I may also not take any unauthorized right to violate the creational laws and recommendations.
You shame me, dear friend. You really embarrass me, even though I am centuries older than you. Not only me, but all our spiritual leaders and all our peoples have a lot to learn.
But do not shame me now, dear friend. You may be an older gentleman, as I am to you with my young years of only 65 springs, in proportion to the earth. But it is precisely the enormous difference in age between you and me that proves to me that I can reach you neither in dignity nor in reverence.
You are wrong, my friend.
All right. That is enough, old man. You should not and must not humiliate yourself like this. But what I wanted to ask, during a conversation with Quetzal in the 80s, it was once mentioned that you do research on the refraction of foreign universes, which means that you want to construct a trans-universe transmission gate that enables you to advance into another universe, which is not a parallel universe like the Dal universe or a sister universe, but effectively a foreign universe. And if you succeed in this, Quetzal said at the time, then it should be possible for you to advance into many other foreign universes. At that time Quetzal spoke about it. It was 1987 or so, as far as I know, that it would take another 15 years or so until your research and the corresponding technology had progressed so far that one could talk about it again. The question now is, has all the research and construction progressed so far that everything is nearing completion? And what about the other project, the transmitter gate through which I can go to Meier one day as you promised me?
Both projects are in the same area of research and development, so they are related and conform. And indeed, both projects have now progressed so far that they are nearing completion. The final perfection should be reached in the next 6 to 7 months, which will allow the new technology to be used.
I look forward to seeing Meier and Nera and Asket again and exchanging words with them. But what about when you have finished the new technology with the Trans-Universe Transmitter Gate, or Trans-Universe Transmission Gate? As it was called by Quetzal, is there a chance for me to be taken with you and your great spacer to one or more of the foreign universes? I know that my request is quite immodest, but it is not a request, but only a request that I wish for, but which is absolutely without obligation on your part.
In your desire I see neither presumption nor immodesty, but only a question, which you are entitled to according to your desire, for which I see no reason to reject your desire. Of course I will do this at the appropriate occasion, but I cannot promise you that it will be possible this year.
You look surprised, my dear fellow. Somehow I feel elevated to a higher level. When I think that I was not only the first, and so far the only human being on Earth to be allowed to visit the Pleiaren and the Dal universe, and now I am to be given the opportunity to be taken into a foreign universe, or into several of them, then I could go directly megalomaniacal. But if that really happens, then I will probably be so overwhelmed by everything that I will only become small and ugly.
I can understand your thoughts and feelings very well, even if you express them with your words in a form that sounds a little strange to me, because I know only too well that your sense of reverence and dignity for everything creational is so pronounced that you can never fall into megalomania. But I, my dear friend, also feel this reverence and dignity for all creational things, which is why your words can also be applied to me. For me, too, everything will be very strange and new, and indeed it will be I who will make the first journey into a strange universe, because this was so proposed by the High Council and found to be right by our entire spiritual leadership and uniformly by all our peoples as a result of my being the Ishwish of Era. May I assure you, my friend, that I too will certainly be overwhelmed by all that is new and by the very fact that I am the first human from the Dern universe to be able to move in a foreign universe. Of course, all human beings who are in my flying device will be with me, so I will not be alone. But I will be the representative of the High Council as well as of our spiritual leadership and all our peoples, and that somehow gives me a feeling that I am granted the great honor of being the relevant first human being from the Dern universe who is allowed and able to advance into a foreign universe, something that even for Hanok was not possible to do, because in his time the technical possibility of this had not yet existed, which we were also only able to develop through Asket's people and their befriended and much more highly developed peoples.
Somehow I hear something in your words that sounds like uplifting joy, but which anchors in great humility and eliminates all pride.
You are able to profoundly grasp my thoughts and feelings, which actually lift me up in joy and do not let any pride arise, which in any form is always false. But now, dear friend Edward, I would like to turn to your new computer device and try to see if I can cope with it, which I doubt, because such earthly devices are completely alien to me. Of course I will cause a lot of trouble, for which I would like to ask Piero once again for leniency and apologies, as he will be, as you said, the person who has to put everything right again. Now please show me where I can find the switch for this computer device.
Here, old man. Do not let yourself be driven to despair. Everything must be learned.
I cannot do that, because this technology is too complicated for me. In order to be able to operate it properly, I need your instruction. Your laughing while watching me is not helping me. I really need your help.
Can laugh with laughter, dear friend. Even I do not know this hellish machine so well that I could teach you how to use it. When the Indians first learned about the telephone apparatus, they called it talking bone, whereas the old people from the so-called civilization first talked about a devilish and hellish apparatus.
Actually, the thought of a hellish machine is also rising in my mind. For me, everything is simply a much too old technology that I cannot get along with so easily. In order to really work with it, I would have to deal with this, for us, extremely old technology in more detail.
Just say it. You find our computer technology antiquated. For us old geezers, it may be that today's earthly computers can be compared to a hellish machine. But when I think of all this, the futuristic that can be found in your technical achievements, I wonder how you can cope with it. Perhaps the young are right when they think and say that we old folks learn certain things with difficulty. By the way, they talk about us at our age in a somewhat disparaging way, because they call us goth and compost, so to speak. Rubbish that you put in the grave or throw on the compost. And, well, when I see the drops of sweat on your forehead, it seems to me that we older men have a little trouble with certain things. You with our antediluvian technology and me with our most modern. Always from your point of view, of course.
You may be right, but you have already told me that regarding goth and compost. For my part, I do not find the designations in this regard exactly honorable, but rather somewhat disparaging towards older humans. Although I am neither old-fashioned nor intolerant, I do find these designations somewhat disrespectful and unworthy of the elderly and old human beings. Our adolescents show all due respect to the older people and the elderly, and they are completely unfamiliar with any kind of disparagement.
Among the adolescents and also among the younger adults here on Earth, unfortunately, there is very often a lack of respect for old age and for human beings in general. In disgracefulness, human beings of all ages are shown neither respect nor reverence. But how could that be, when you consider how war, hatred, vindictiveness, racism, xenophobia, lack of love, betrayal, torture, the death penalty, injustice, sectarianism, exploitation, fraud, crime of all kinds, greed for profit and power, as well as terror and murder and manslaughter, along with labor, rape, and mistreatment of children and women of all ages, and religious, social, and racial backgrounds prevail.
All these inhumanities are just as foreign on all our worlds and among all our races as they are on the worlds and among all the races of our Federation. In contrast to the human beings on Earth, we cultivate reverence and dignity and respect and honor in every respect, and consequently no hatred and quarreling, nor any of the evils and degenerations as you have called them. But now, dear friend, it is time for me to go, for I have been here for over 3 hours, and have to go back to devote myself to my duties. I will be in touch with you soon. Maybe by then I will be able to make my debut at the new forest seat at the Biotope. Maybe we can sit there together if the climatic conditions allow it and it is warm enough. Farewell, dear friend, and goodbye.
Likewise, Ta. Give my best regards to all from me, and see you again next time. Take care in Salami.